In 336 BCE, the ancient world did not expect history to accelerate. When Philip II of Macedon was assassinated, many assumed his young son would struggle to hold the throne, let alone reshape continents. Alexander was only 20 years old, untested, surrounded by rivals, and ruling a kingdom that larger powers still viewed as peripheral. To the south, the Greek city-states watched carefully, some hoping Macedonian control would weaken. To the east stood the Persian Empire under Darius III, a superpower stretching from Egypt to the borders of India. Its wealth, manpower, and infrastructure dwarfed anything Macedon could command. By every conventional measure, the balance of power was clear. Yet within 2 years, that certainty began to fracture. In 334 BCE, Alexander crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor, not with overwhelming numbers, but with speed and confidence that unsettled observers. Victories followed with startling momentum. Reports spread across the Mediterranean of a young king defeating satraps and advancing deeper into Persian territory. Cities that had known Persian authority for generations now faced a challenger who refused to move cautiously. What shocked the world was not simply that he attacked, but how quickly he advanced, as if time itself were bending to his ambition. Before Alexander ever set foot in Asia, the Persian Empire stood as the unquestioned superpower of the known world. Founded by Cyrus the Great 2 centuries earlier, it stretched from the Aegean coast of Anatolia to the Indus Valley, from the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of Central Asia. Its rulers commanded immense wealth drawn from diverse provinces, each connected by an advanced administrative system. The royal road allowed messages and officials to travel across thousands of miles with remarkable efficiency. Satraps governed regions in the king's name, collecting tribute and maintaining order. Armies could be assembled from across continents, drawing on cavalry from the steppes, infantry from Mesopotamia, archers from Anatolia, and sailors from Phoenicia. To contemporaries, Persia was not simply powerful, it was permanent. In contrast, the Greek world was fractured. The city-states of Athens, Sparta, and Thebes had spent generations locked in rivalry and war, most notably during the Peloponnesian War of the 5th century BCE. Their exhaustion created opportunity. Philip II of Macedon, Alexander's father, had already begun exploiting that weakness. Through diplomacy, marriage alliances, and decisive military victories, most famously at the Battle of Kyrenia in 338 BCE, Philip brought much of Greece under Macedonian influence. Yet even then, Macedon was seen by many Greeks as semi-barbaric, a northern kingdom benefiting from circumstance rather than destiny. Persia, meanwhile, underestimated the danger emerging from the west. Darius III inherited a vast empire but not necessarily the firmest control over it. Court intrigue and regional autonomy weakened cohesion at the highest levels. Though resources were immense, decision-making could be slow, and coordination across vast territories was complex. Macedon, by comparison, was compact, centralized, and increasingly professional in its military structure. Philip had reformed the army, introducing the sarissa-equipped phalanx and strengthening cavalry forces, creating a disciplined and versatile fighting force. When Alexander inherited this system, he did not need to build from nothing. He inherited a sharpened weapon. Persia appeared unassailable because of its size. Macedon appeared minor because of its scale. Yet size can create complacency, and scale can create agility. The world before Alexander was not defenseless, but it was divided, overconfident, and unprepared for a leader who would move faster than its expectations. What truly separated Macedon from its rivals was not its size, but the transformation of its army into a disciplined and flexible instrument of war. Philip II had already laid the foundation, but Alexander would refine and unleash it with relentless precision. At the heart of this force stood the Macedonian phalanx, armed with the sarissa, a spear reaching up to 20 feet in length. When arranged in tight formation, the front ranks projected a dense forest of spear points outward, creating a defensive wall that was extraordinarily difficult to penetrate. Unlike traditional Greek hoplites, who relied heavily on individual strength and localized coordination, the Macedonian phalanx functioned as a unified organism. drilled to move in cohesion across uneven terrain. Yet the phalanx was not designed to win battles alone. Its true power emerged when combined with the companion cavalry, an elite mounted force that served as Alexander's decisive strike arm. While the phalanx fixed the enemy in place, absorbing pressure and holding formation, the cavalry maneuvered swiftly along the flanks. Alexander often led these cavalry charges personally, directing a wedge-shaped formation toward critical weak points in enemy lines. Timing was essential. The moment an opening appeared, the cavalry exploited it with speed and concentrated force, turning stability into collapse. This integration of infantry and cavalry reflected a broader military philosophy. Macedon's army was not a temporary levy assembled for a single campaign, it was a professional standing force. Soldiers trained together for years, developing discipline and mutual trust. Forced marches allowed them to cover extraordinary distances, arriving before opponents could fully prepare. Logistics were streamlined, and decision-making was centralized under Alexander's command, enabling rapid adaptation in the midst of battle. The first major demonstration of this system came in 334 BCE at the Battle of the Granicus River. Persian satraps attempted to halt Alexander's advance in Asia Minor, positioning cavalry along the riverbank to block crossing. Conventional wisdom would have advised caution. Instead, Alexander launched an aggressive assault across the water, engaging directly and breaking the defensive line through coordinated pressure and cavalry momentum. The victory was not overwhelming in scale, but it was symbolic. It proved that Persia's regional defenses could be defeated quickly. The Macedonian army's strength did not lie in sheer numbers. It lay in structure, coordination, and the ability to combine different arms into a single, fluid force. In Alexander's hands, this system would not merely win battles. It would dismantle an empire that had stood for generations. The true test of Alexander's ambition came in 333 BCE at the Battle of Issus, where he faced Darius III in person for the first time. Unlike earlier encounters with Persian satraps, this was a direct confrontation with the king of the empire that had dominated the Near East for 2 centuries. The battlefield itself shaped the outcome. Near the narrow coastal plain of Issus in southern Anatolia, mountains pressed close to the sea, restricting the maneuverability of the vast Persian host. Darius had assembled a force that likely outnumbered the Macedonians significantly, expecting numerical superiority to overwhelm the invaders. But the terrain neutralized that advantage. Alexander recognized the opportunity immediately. The constrained space limited Persia's ability to envelop his smaller army. As the Macedonian phalanx engaged the Persian infantry in brutal frontal combat, Alexander positioned himself on the right flank with the companion cavalry. The fighting was intense, with Persian forces pushing hard against sections of the phalanx. Yet discipline